We've all been there, right? That silence in the exam hall, the pressure of that one single grade. Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the system that's behind that exact feeling. It's called assessment of learning.
Okay, just for a second, I want you to think back. Can you remember that feeling? You know, the one in the pit of your stomach? All that late night cramming, the total silence of the exam hall, and just the weight of that one grade. That pressure? It's something millions of us have gone through. And today, we're going to unpack exactly why it even exists.
So, what's the official name for the system behind all that stress? Let's get into it and look at the formal process that puts so much pressure on just one test. All right, so its formal name is Assessment of Learning, or AOL for short, and really all it is the process of figuring out what a student has learned after all the teaching is over. You can think of it like the final verdict, right? It's the grade on your report card, the pass or fail, the certificate you get at the very end. It's a summative process. It's meant to summarize everything you've achieved.
But, as we all know from experience, it's rarely just a simple summary, is it? It carries a ton of weight. And that leads us right into the whole topic of the immense pressure of the test.
Yeah, there's a reason we call these high-stakes tests. The results, they're not just some friendly update on your progress. No, they're used to make huge decisions about your life. Are you going to get promoted to the next grade? Can you get into your dream university? Will you get that professional certification? I mean, your future can literally hinge on these scores.
And that kind of pressure, it has this huge ripple effect that goes right back into the classroom. This quote here really nails it. When the stakes are that high, the focus can shift away from genuine learning and curiosity to just mastering the test. It's that classic problem of teaching to the test.
And the consequences, they spread even wider than that. The curriculum starts to shrink, right? It only covers what's going to be on the exam. Student anxiety just goes through the roof. And what about skills like creativity or teamwork? Well, they're hard to measure with a bubble sheet, so they often get pushed to the side. What's more, it can actually reinforce social and economic inequalities because students with more resources often get way better access to test prep.
Okay, wow, that's a pretty heavy list of problems. So it makes you wonder, right? Why on earth is this system still at the very heart of education? Well, let's flip the coin and look at the other side of the argument, the reasons why we apparently still need it.
And this, right here, is the central tension of this whole topic. I mean, with all those downsides we just talked about, the stress, the shrinking curriculum, why is this assessment of learning a cornerstone of education practically everywhere in the world? What purpose is it actually serving that's so important?
Well, the answer is that it provides really important information to a whole lot of different people. For you, the student, and for your parents, it's that clear summary of how you did, that grade on your transcript. For teachers and schools, it gives them data to see if their programs are actually working. For the people making policy, it's a way to monitor educational standards across an entire state or country. And of course, for universities and employers, it's a standardized way to help them choose people. It's woven so deeply into the fabric of the whole system.
So, okay, if we can't just get rid of it, then the challenge becomes, how do we make it better? And that brings us to the next big question. How do you actually build a fairer, more meaningful assessment?
The research points to 5 really key principles for any good assessment. Number 1 is alignment. You have to test what was actually taught. Seems obvious, but it's crucial. 2 is validity. Does the test actually measure the skill you care about, or does it just measure how good someone is at taking tests? 3, reliability. The results need to be consistent and stable. 4 is fairness. No group of students should be put at a disadvantage by the test itself. And last but not least, number 5 is transparency. Everybody involved, students, teachers, parents, should know the rules of the game right from the start.
Now this all sounds great, but it's way easier said than done. That's because there's this built-in trade-off when you're designing an assessment. On one hand, you've got your classic standardized tests, like multiple choice. They're super reliable, right? A computer can score thousands of them and get the exact same result every time. But the risk is that they're too narrow. They might only be measuring simple memorization. Then, on the other hand, you have these really rich performance tests, like a portfolio or a big project. These are amazing for capturing deep learning, but trying to score them consistently and fairly for thousands and thousands of students, that's a huge challenge.
So finding the right balance here requires a few key strategies. A really big one is to use multiple measures, so a student's entire future doesn't depend on one single day, one single exam. Another is to design tasks that force you to use higher-order thinking, things like analysis and problem-solving. And finally, it's about trusting the professional judgment of teachers, and also about improving assessment literacy for everybody, so that teachers and parents actually understand what these results mean and what they don't mean.
All right, so where is all this headed? What's next? Let's take a look into the future of grading.
You know, the biggest shift that's happening right now is this move away from a system that only judges learning toward one that also supports it. The goal is to use the data from these tests not just to slap a grade on a report card, but to feed that information back into the system to actually improve teaching and help students grow.
And you can see that evolution right here. In the past, it was all about that one big final test. Right now, in the present, we're trying to find a better balance between different types of assessment. And the future? Well, digital tools are opening up some really incredible possibilities. I'm talking about things like adaptive tests that change based on your skill level as you take them, or even simulations that can measure complex problem solving in a way a piece of paper just never could.
And this brings us right back to the core dilemma, the central challenge of it all. We need accountability. Of course we do. Universities have to select applicants, and society needs to know that its schools are doing a good job. The ultimate challenge is figuring out how to get that accountability without all the damaging side effects we talked about. The anxiety, the narrow curriculum, the inequality.
Which leaves us with one fundamental question, and it's something for all of us to think about. As students, as parents, as teachers, as a society, we have to ask ourselves, how can we measure learning without, well, punishing it? Finding the answer to that question is really going to define the entire future of education.